This is Nightly Business Report with Tyler Matheson and Sue Herrera.
Decision day. Stocks close in on their 2016 highs as investors bet that voters in the United Kingdom will decide to remain in the European Union.
Surprise diagnosis. Health officials say AstraZeneca's flu mist, once regarded as the best way to protect kids from the virus, doesn't work.
Troubling results. One of the most popular small SUVs performed the worst in the latest crash tests. Those stories and more tonight on Nightly Business Report for Thursday, June 23rd.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sharon Epperson, in tonight for Sue Herrera.
And I'm Tyler Matheson, coming to you tonight from 30 Rock in New York City. Well, stocks rallied to near records, a sign perhaps that investors expect the UK to vote to stay in the European Union, even though polls in recent days have characterized the vote as a virtual coin toss. And reports say there are deep divisions throughout the country. As we have been reporting, the market has been held captive by this vote, moving higher with every poll that favors stay and twitching lower with every one that favors leave. Today, the Dow Jones Industrial Average closed back above 18,000, gaining 230 points. The Nasdaq added 76, and the S&P 500 rose 27.
A final outcome of the referendum won't be known until early tomorrow morning, but there was a new poll out tonight, and Wilfred Frost in London has the details.
Polls in the UK's historic vote on its membership in the European Union closed 10 p.m. local time. The very first indications coming from polling firm YouGov, a poll they carried out today of around 5,000 people, however, not an official exit poll, suggesting Remain is just ahead, 52 to 48. The same company's last poll was a reading of 51 to 49, suggesting a slight increase in recent days towards the Remain camp. A reminder that this is not an official exit poll. Early indications from various reports are that turnout is very high, a factor that was expected to benefit the Remain camp. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Wilfred Frost in London.
And in Great Britain, people are lining up to buy euros and dollars, selling pounds. Currency exchange shop owners say they've seen a surge in demand for foreign cash ahead of those results of the UK referendum. The majority of the transfers are from the pound sterling to euros. Many experts say the pound could fall as much as 20% if the UK does opt to leave.
So what if Britain votes to leave the European Union? What impact will there be on the U.S. stock market for both the long and the short term? Jim Paulson, Chief Investment Strategist at Wells Capital Management, joins us now. And Jim, even though the markets today seem to indicate that they believe perhaps that there will be a Remain vote at the end of the day, and we did see this 200-point rally in the Dow Jones Industrial Average, it's still a coin toss out there. We don't know the final results. What will be the impact, and how far could we see a slide, perhaps, if the vote goes the other way?
Well, certainly, Sharon, given the reaction of the markets now to move all the way back up close to record highs in the United States, there's developed some risk for the disappointment. While there's a lot of thought that it's going to be a stay vote, if it is a leave vote now, you probably got some risk in most markets across the world. You know, would not be at all surprising to me if we get a leave vote that the market falls, you know, a fair amount, 3% maybe in a day, and maybe, you know, 5 or more percent over the next week here in the United States, and probably even more so closer to double digits in the UK itself. And you certainly will have big moves in currencies. You'll probably have big drops in sovereign bond yields that are still considered safe havens. You'll probably have a pop in the U.S. dollar to some extent as people are rushing to safe havens. So commodities will probably go lower. Emerging markets will get hit. So there could be a big immediate knee-jerk negative reaction to a leave vote, since it looks like it's totally unexpected. But I really think longer term, investors will calm down, and over the course of the next few weeks, even with the leave vote, come to the realization that that doesn't even mean it's final. It has to still go to Parliament. It could still be backed out. Even if Parliament passes it, it'd take another 2 years, and any time in there it could be backed out. And I really think that I would look, if there is a leave vote, at the carnage that comes here in the next few weeks more as a buying opportunity for long-term investors, because ultimately, even with a leave, I think there's a good possibility down the road we still get a pretty good rally.
You know, just in the past few minutes, Jim, one of the leaders of the Leave movement, head of the Independent Party, said that he was feeling as though the Remain vote was going to prevail. If that happens, what's the outcome over the next weeks and months? Do we just go back to concentrating on the run-of-the-mill ordinary worries?
I think that's right. And, you know, Tyler, I guess what I like about this is if we get by Brexit here, which I kind of think we will, I think there's some good things going on here. We've got a very broad-based rally since January, unlike the one we had last August. There's broader participation, which tells me there's more good results going on in these companies than we've had for a while. We also have no hurdle or offset with higher bond yields. Normally when stock market goes up, bond yields go up. Here they've been going down while stocks are rallying, so there's no check to this rally. Economic surprise indices have been turning up around the world of late. And as you mentioned, we're kind of back this year to finally climbing that perpetual wall of worry. The fear is back, the thing that's made this bull market great. I kind of think if Brexit is over, then we're going to go to new record highs here over the next few months.
All right, there we have it. Jim Paulson with Wells Capital Management. Thanks so much.
Good place to leave it. All right, so while a leave vote could have wide-reaching implications for the markets, as Jim just pointed out, what might it mean for you? Well, for one, it could affect mortgage rates. If investors decide to look for safety and plow money into government bonds, yields could fall even further, and in turn, that might push down mortgage rates. It could temporarily make your retirement savings less valuable. About half of all of America's full-time workers participate in their company's 401k programs, which are, of course, susceptible to any market swings. And with predictions of a drop in the pound if the Brits vote to leave, it could make the cost of a vacation in Britain more appealing.
Meanwhile, in our nation's capital, the Supreme Court upheld the affirmative action program at the University of Texas at Austin. In a 4-3 ruling, the justices said the university's plan to take race into consideration as one factor of admission was constitutional. The court's decision does leave room for future challenges to racial preference policies at other schools.
The Supreme Court also ruled on a case closely watched by the business community: immigration. Many executives say immigration reform would improve economic growth and boost productivity, employment, and wages. Today, a deadlocked Supreme Court dealt President Obama a major setback on his controversial policy. Hampton Pearson has the details.
In just one sentence, the Supreme Court let stand a lower court ruling that blocked President Obama's plan to spare roughly 4 million illegal immigrants from deportation, especially those with children who are American citizens and immigrants with no criminal record. At the White House, the president expressed his disappointment.
Today's decision is frustrating to those who seek to grow our economy and bring a rationality to our immigration system, and to allow people to come out of the shadows and lift this perpetual cloud on them.
On Capitol Hill, Republican leaders said it was another win in their campaign against the president's immigration policy and what they view as his excessive use of executive authority.
This is a win for the Constitution, it's a win for Congress, and it's a win in our fight to restore the separation of powers.
Pro-immigration advocates point out blocking the administration plan to prioritize who gets deported leaves not just workers in limbo, but their employers as well.
Employers are similarly caught in the crosshairs. This is the dysfunction of our system, and the court could have gone a long way today to help American businesses, to help all American people, to support taxpayers, and they failed to do their job.
On Monday, the High Court will hand down the final 3 decisions of this term, including a major ruling on abortion that could impact millions of American women. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Hampton Pearson at the Supreme Court.
Well, the ruling on immigration was also the talk of the campaign trail on a day that saw a lot of news out of Washington. And John Harwood is tracking all of it for us. John, what was the reaction today from Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton to the immigration ruling?
Well, what you got from Trump and Republicans was a statement that the court had vindicated their complaints that President Obama was overreaching his executive authority with that decision. What you got from President Obama, Hillary Clinton, and Democrats was outrage at the fact that both the policy was blocked, but also at Republicans for not confirming the Supreme Court justice President Obama has nominated, Merrick Garland, who could have broken that tie in the president's favor. And one of the things that we know is when you lose on policy in a highly emotional case like this, you tend to win on the politics because the people who get mobilized are the ones aggrieved by the decision. So this may be a setback for President Obama, but something that boosts Hillary Clinton politically.
In another major development, a number of top business leaders endorsed Clinton today, John. Among them were Berkshire's Warren Buffett, Facebook's Sheryl Sandberg, former DuPont CEO Ellen Coleman, and Netflix CEO Reed Hastings. Now, how influential are endorsements like this, and what impact will this have on the campaign?
Well, some of them were no surprise. Warren Buffett has already endorsed Hillary Clinton before that. When you have a large number of executives who are on a list who come out and endorse, that has some impact. I think the most significant, though, was Jim Cecconi, who is an executive with AT&T. He was a senior aide in the first Bush White House. He also worked in the Reagan White House. He came out and said that Hillary Clinton would do a fine job and that Donald Trump would take us down a dark path. When you have someone in the nominee's own party come out and speak against him, that has more impact.
John, it looked a bit chaotic on the House floor over the past 24 hours. Democrats today ended their gun control sit-in after about a day. The NRA, very powerful, well-funded lobby group. What happens next as the House goes on recess?
The House vows that they're going to come back and talk about this on July 5th when they return. Speaker Ryan came out today and called again this move by the Democrats a publicity stunt, said they were raising campaign money off of it. He wants to keep substance in charge in the House of Representatives, but the Democrats did get good news in the Senate, which failed to kill a potential compromise measure. So there are some narrow hopes of something legislatively moving. It's not likely, but it's not impossible.
All right, John, thank you very much. John Harwood reporting tonight from Washington.
Both presidential candidates have been very outspoken on trade. Donald Trump for his plan to build a wall on the Mexican border and slap huge tariffs on Chinese goods. Hillary Clinton for her opposition to the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And both policies could have an economic effect on states across the country. Scott Cohn reports from Oakland, California.
Among the places they'll be watching this fall's presidential election most closely is here in Oakland, California. This is home to the 5th largest U.S. port, a port that's been fueled by a 20-year trend toward liberalizing foreign trade. But that is almost certainly about to change no matter who's elected this fall. Donald Trump, of course, has been calling for the wall with Mexico, but also threatening stiff tariffs on Chinese goods.
We don't have free trade. With China, they dump their product all over the place. They're dumping steels and ruining our steel mills. We need smart leaders to make free trade work. And we have leaders that are not smart. In fact, they're rather stupid.
Hillary Clinton has cooled to free trade as well, turning against the Trans-Pacific Trade Partnership that she once called the gold standard.
I just don't think that when you add it all up, it meets the standards that I set, and I couldn't look in the eyes of, a voter and say, yeah, I'm convinced this is going to raise your income, because I wasn't.
If all of that results in reduced trade with China, or worst case, a trade war, some states are going to be affected more than others. These are the top states for exports to China. First, Washington State, where Boeing makes its planes, $19 billion worth of goods shipped last year. Close behind, California at $16 billion and Texas at nearly $12 billion. Opponents of the Free Trade Pact say that canceling them or changing them will bring jobs back to the U.S., but in the short term, they almost certainly will have an economic effect in places like Oakland. I'm Scott Cohn, Nightly Business Report, Oakland, California.
Still ahead, ever get the flu mist nasal spray vaccine? Well, guess what? It doesn't work. What health officials are recommending you do now.
The popular nasal spray version of the flu vaccine doesn't protect kids the way it was supposed to. In a surprise decision, health officials are advising doctors now to not use the missed vaccine this year, a reversal from its previous stance. Meg Terrell has more on this change in diagnosis.
It was the only option for flu vaccine that doesn't involve a needle. The Flu Mist nasal spray is made by UK drug maker AstraZeneca and accounts for about a third of flu vaccines given to kids in the U.S. But according to the CDC, it provided only 3% protection against the flu last season. That compares with 63% for the flu shot.
Over the last 3 years, we've been hearing that the effectiveness of the nasal spray has been less than has been expected. But I think I was a little surprised that it was as low as the CDC says it is.
Manufacturer AstraZeneca claims Flu Mist provides 46 to 58% protection, according to its own studies and those of public health authorities in other countries. It says it's working with the CDC to better understand its data and to try to ensure Americans can receive the nasal spray vaccine in future flu seasons.
Once we find out why it didn't work, there can certainly be changes made so that that form of vaccine will hopefully show equivalent efficacy again.
In the meantime, AstraZeneca says it expects very limited U.S. demand this year due to the CDC's recommendation Flu Mist not be used. Flu Mist brings in more than $200 million in annual U.S. sales for the British drug maker, which now plans to write off $80 million in inventory in the second quarter. The company is not the largest provider of flu vaccines in the U.S. Sanofi, GlaxoSmithKline, and CSL all make more. But AstraZeneca had planned to supply as many as 14 million doses, or about 8% of the total flu vaccine in the U.S. this season. The CDC says it'll work with other manufacturers through the summer to ensure there's no vaccine shortage. But parents and pediatricians will have to brace themselves for a change. The CDC still recommends a flu shot for people aged 6 months and up.
Knowing that the shot works fairly well and that influenza is a major cause of problems and deaths in this country means that it's going to be very, very important to really stress the point that everybody needs to get an influenza vaccine.
In fact, I got my first flu shot last year as part of reporting for a story. I was surprised it didn't hurt more.
That's it.
For Nightly Business Report, I'm Meg Terrell.
From healthcare to financial services and the big banks, they aced their stress tests. The Federal Reserve gave passing grades to them and deemed them strong enough to weather a severe economic catastrophe without help from the government. Under a hypothetical scenario, the central bank calculated that 33 of the largest banks would have loan losses of $385 billion, meeting the Fed's definition of good health during a severe recession. The results signal that many banks will win approval next week to increase their dividends.
Macy's CEO Terry Lundgren plans to step down, and that is where we begin tonight's Market Focus. After 14 years as CEO, Lundgren said he would leave that role in the first quarter of next year to take on the position of executive chairman. The retailer's current president will succeed Lundgren as CEO. Shares of Macy's up more than 1.5% today to finish at $33.38. Twilio made its stock market debut today. The cloud communications company offered 10 million shares at $15 apiece. Those shares began trading at $23.99, a nearly 60% increase above the initial public offering. Shares soared 92% on the day to $28.79. BlackBerry posted a sharp decline in revenue in the latest quarter, with results falling short of analyst estimates. Despite the miss, the smartphone maker beat profit targets and forecast a smaller than expected loss for the year. CEO John Chen spoke about the company's next move.
I'm looking to now open to license my software, my handset software, and the interfaces to a lot of our, maybe even our competitors in the making hardware business side of the equation. So thereby, I think our margin will be better, our balance sheets will be more protected, and the growth will be forthcoming.
Shares of BlackBerry rose more than 3.5% to $7 even.
Meanwhile, automaker Fiat Chrysler is issuing more recalls. The company is recalling more than 13,000 vehicles in its Maserati division due to the vehicle's confusing gear shifter. Fiat also said that software upgrade fixes will be available by the end of the month for Jeep models that were recalled for the same issue. Shares of Fiat were up nearly 4% to $7.19. Boeing will ramp up its aircraft production as it expects demand for passenger jets to rise in the coming years. The aircraft maker said within 20 years, 38,000 new planes will be needed for the anticipated growth in air transport demand. And as a result, Boeing plans to make more than 900 planes in 5 years. Shares are up 1% to $133.55.
Volkswagen will reportedly pay about $10 billion to settle claims from its emissions cheating scandal. The money would compensate nearly 500,000 owners of vehicles programmed to cheat on the emissions test. The company will pay diesel car owners about $5,000, in some cases as much as $10 grand, on top of a buyback or repair.
New crash tests have reduced some troubling results. Vehicles that protect drivers in certain collisions may leave passengers at risk. And as Phil LeBeau reports, the model getting the worst marks is one of the most popular small SUVs.
It's a deadly collision that until now had never been replicated in crash tests. It's the small overlap collision, where the front passenger side hits another car or object at 40 miles per hour. The Insurance Institute for Highway Safety tested 7 small SUVs that have good ratings for that type of collision on the driver's side. But on the passenger side, it was a different story, especially for 3 models. The Nissan Rogue and Subaru Forester were rated as marginal, while Toyota's RAV4 was given a rating of poor by the IIHS. Toyota says the test is severe, specialized, and goes beyond the federal vehicle safety requirements. After the small overlap test was first introduced in 2012, Toyota took steps to improve the performance of its vehicle in the test. Rather than waiting to re-engineer both the driver and passenger sides, we took immediate steps to enhance performance on the driver's side. Focusing on driver protection during small overlap crashes explains why some SUVs did not do as well protecting passengers in a similar collision. But even models with completely symmetrical front ends produced different results, something engineers will focus on correcting.
This test is just unveiling that there's something new, something that can be made an improvement on in the future, but it doesn't necessarily mean that your vehicle that you're currently riding in is not safe.
In 2014, the most recent year with data, more than 1,600 people here in the United States who were riding as passengers in the front seat of a vehicle were killed in crashes. The IIHS believes it can lower that number by focusing new crash tests on one of the most common collisions out on the road. Phil LeBeau, Nightly Business Report, Chicago.
To read more about the crash tests, head to our website, nbr.com.
And coming up, the big money and the big online stars behind the small screen.
The online video industry is growing, and so is the annual gathering of all the people who create those videos that we watch. The meeting, called VidCon, comes as social media companies aggressively compete for one thing: ad dollars. Julia Borston is in Anaheim.
As many as 30,000 digital video fans will flock to VidCon, paying $150 each to see their favorite YouTube stars. And the business of digital video is exploding. The amount of time U.S. adults spend watching digital video is growing 10.5% a year, now an hour and 8 minutes a day, according to eMarketer.
People are finally beginning to realize that these audiences truly relate to the programs and to the talent that is in them. And as a result of that, advertisers are asking and coming increasingly to say, how do we take advantage of that?
With YouTube, the leader in the space, projected to grow to $5.2 billion in advertising this year, it's drawing competition from Facebook, Snapchat, and Twitter, all trying for a piece of the digital video ad pie.
A broad range of brands are here at VidCon, sponsors ranging from Kia and Samsung to CoverGirl and Taco Bell with this booth here behind me. These brands hoping to collaborate with creators on branded content and providing the attendees here with plenty of opportunities for selfies.
I do appreciate the brand deals, and they are coming because now everyone's paying attention to the internet. Before, it's like, what are they doing? But when you have an audience and influence, they come. And as long as they're a good brand, I don't have a problem with it, and it's working for me.
And it's working for digital media companies, including Awesomeness TV, with star content creators who have a social reach of over 600 million people.
I think we are at a tipping point. I think that, listen, television's not going away today, tomorrow, anytime soon. But are people watching 30-second spots the way they used to? People are watching shows. Doesn't mean they're getting the ads with them. We know that when we do a piece of branded content like our Royal Crush series, there's just not only are you getting views, but you're getting super high engagement.
Here at VidCon, Facebook unveiled more tools for its Facebook Live video platform, such as the ability to go live with someone else or to schedule a broadcast. This as Facebook looks to lure over content creators and the fans and the ad dollars they bring. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Julia Borston in Anaheim, California.
I'm going with the green glitter lipstick tomorrow, folks. Before we go, here's another look at the day on Wall Street, the day that Britons went to the polls. The Dow closed back above 18,000, gaining 230 points. NASDAQ added 76, and the S&P 500 rose 27. Sharon.
And that is Nightly Business Report for tonight. I'm Sharon Epperson. Thanks so much for watching.
And I'm Tyler Mathisen. Have a great evening, everybody, and we will see you back here tomorrow night.